Right, hello. That was very enthusiastic. Welcome to the Snowflake stitch along. It's actually not a stitch along, more of a tutorial on how to do these. Also, before you get started, I should point out this is not a professional setup and I am chaos personified. So if you were looking for professional and calm, sorry, but I can show you how to stitch these up. So yes, this is the welcome to the video. I did watch the footage back and I realized that one of the first things you're going to have to do is separate the floss, and I forgot to show you how to do that. So I'm going to start off with showing you how to do this. So this is embroidery floss. I do sell these as kits and you get this floss in it. And it's made up of 6 strands of thread, which you can separate or not, depending on how thick you want your stitches to be. The fewer strands you use, the thinner and finer your stitches will be. Right at the start of the video, I started stitching up with 2 strands, and I wanted it chunkier because I wanted it to be easier for you to see what I was doing. So I ended up using 4, and that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to show you how to split the thread to give you 4. I'm going to try anyway. We'll see if my camera will play ball. So basically, you just get your thread. You don't even need the needle at this point. And what I do is pinch it, and I just tap the end. And what that does is it kind of separates the top there. It won't focus, but trust me, this makes your life a little bit easier. And then you want to pinch out how many strands of thread that you want. Again, it's completely up to you, but if you want to do it exactly as I did in this video, you will want to pinch out 2 strands, which will leave you with 4. So there's the 2 we're taking out, because don't forget, it starts with 6. 6 minus 2 equals 4. Basic math. And you thought you came here for stitching. And then what you want to do is you just want to pull it very gently. You want to do it gently, because if you don't, it starts to knot. And that's a pain in the neck. And as you can see, nice. And there, see there, it's starting to tug a little bit. What you can do then, there you go, you can just flip it over and keep pulling just very gently. And then when you get to the end, ping. So satisfying, so satisfying. And then you're left with your thread. Okay, now we'll jump into the rest of the video, where I start by threading up the needle, and I'll show you how to tie a quilter's knot at the end so that your thread doesn't keep pulling out. Let's dive in. Okay, so we actually start with the stick and stitch patches. They're just like stickers. You just have to peel off the backing, like I'm trying to here, and then just center them into the middle of the hoop, and then you're done. Well, not quite. You still have to stitch the thing up, but step 1 is done. Okay, now we come to the threading. I do include a needle threader in with the kits, so just to make this job a lot easier, but you can do it without. I didn't have any to hand at the time. I couldn't be bothered to get one. So once you've got your needle threaded up, it's time for your quilter's knot. And that is quite simple. You just pinch the end of the thread with your fingers, and then you wrap it around the needle once or twice. I'm doing it twice here because I only had 2 strands of floss. If you have more, you only need 1. And then you gently, very gently and slowly pull the thread through your fingertips. And what this should do is pinch a little knot at the end. Ta-da! Quilter's knot, nice and easy. And now we can start stitching. So I just started from the bottom of one of the strands here, and we're going to start with a back stitch. So when you come up, you want to go back down a stitch length ahead, so a very bog standard stitch, but then you want to come back up again a stitch ahead of your original stitch, and then you'll come back down at the end of your first stitch. So you're essentially jumping ahead and then stitching backwards, hence the name backstitch. This is one of my favourite stitches and I use this a lot in my work. Yeah, we'll speed this up. Okay, healthy start. And then you just want to carry on all around the snowflake. And you can see here I've jumped to 4 strands. So this is why the snowflake is suddenly looking a little bit chunkier. And we're just going to do a simple stitch to do this. What are they called? Fractals? Snowflake pieces? We're just going to do one straight stitch for each of those. Easy peasy. And you just want to carry on round the snowflake. I wish stitching was this quick. Okay, we're going to dive into doing a bullion knot. Now this can be quite tricky. You need 2 hands and I found this quite difficult to do using this stand and filming at the same time, but hopefully I'll be able to help you out. You want to come up at the end of the snowflake piece and go back down right at the end of your original stitch there. But here's the thing, you want to leave a loop of fabric. You don't want to pull the thread all the way through. So there you go. I've got a loop of thread there. Then underneath you want to pull or push the needle back up where you originally brought it up. See here? There we go. But you don't want to push the needle all the way through because you're going to wrap the thread around it. This is the bit that I find tricky, especially when the stand is in the way. You want to wrap it around as many times as it takes to fill in that snowflake piece. I really need to know what that is called. You're just going to have to eyeball it. And when the loops go around the needle, they do kind of want to bounce off. So you can just push them down gently with your finger. And when you think you've got enough, I was just trying to gauge it there. Took a few off just to be sure. You want to try and push it down gently but firmly with a finger and pull the needle through, keeping the stitches in place. This is the fiddly part. You will find this easier because you won't need to worry about holding the hoop away from you and under a camera. It might take a few tries if you're doing this for the first time. As I say, I tend to use 2 hands to do this. But I promise you it gets easier. It's not hard, it's just fiddly. And you can see that I was pulling a little bit too tight, which is why my bullion knot is thicker at the end and thinner at the bottom, but it works for the snowflake, so I didn't mind too much. And then you just want to anchor that in by pushing your needle back down at the end of your stitch. And if that hasn't destroyed your love of stitching already, just carry on around the snowflake and make more bullion knots. Again, coming up at the top, going down at the bottom, not pulling the thread all the way through because you need that loop. Bring your needle back up at the top of your stitch and wrap that thread around it. You can see I was finding this one a little bit easier because I had a bit more room for my fingers. And then gently hold it in place and pull the thread through. Jumper fluff is optional. Note to self, next time I film a tutorial, don't wear a fluffy jumper. There we go. And then when we're done, anchor the stitch by pushing the needle back down at the bottom. And you can already see that the tension is much better on that one. Still not perfect, but again, when you come to do these stitches, you'll be able to hold the hoop at an angle and at a distance away from you that feels comfortable, and it will help no end. But hopefully you get the idea. And then just to finish off the back, you just push your needle through and pull your thread through. You can loop the needle through and make a knot, but there's no need because you're not going to be wearing this piece. So just sew it through the thread a few times, just secure it in place and then snip it off. Wonky hoop is optional too. This is the bit I love. I want to show you just how magic this stuff is by putting it in the water and not doing anything. You can see how it's already curling away from the fabric, and this is without rubbing it, without running water or any agitation whatsoever. It's already dissolving all of its own accord. Now, when you've got delicate stitches, I would recommend using a paintbrush, a fine paintbrush, to just get the rest of the solvay out from in between the stitches. And I did have to do that for this, but most of the time you can just run it under a tap and it will come away with no problem. But if you have got a little intricate snowflake, that tip does help. All right, next snowflake. We're going to start off once again with a back stitch. Nice and easy. And then this is going to be a lazy daisy stitch, which is my least favourite stitch. I'm not sure why, but you just want to come up as if you were doing another stitch for the back stitch, but you want to go back down in the same spot or just as close next to it as you can, leaving a loop that needs to be about the same size as you want the stitch to be. You don't want to pull it too tight, otherwise it will lose the petal shape. That's what I was doing there, just trying to measure it. And you want to bring the needle up at the top and through your loop. Oh, that's looking lovely, if I do say so myself. And then you want to just bring it back down over the thread so that it anchors it in place. And that's it. And then you just want to back stitch these. I'm going to say fractals. I have no idea what they're called, but we're just going to stick with fractals for this. And you just want to continue around the entire snowflake until you have something like this. Third snowflake, and again, back stitch. I did tell you that I liked my back stitch. And a big old stitch for these end bits. Next time I'll figure out what they're called. And these are one of my favourite stitches, French knots. You come up in the middle and you wrap the thread a couple of times around your needle and push it back down close to the middle again. Anchor the stitch in place with your thumb. You don't want to do it too tight. Again, just keeping it, holding it in place firmly and then pulling the thread through gently. Don't tug too tight at the end. And that should give you a nice little French knot. You can make thicker ones with more strands of thread, or you can make smaller, finer ones with fewer. And now I'm going to finish up by just showing you how you can tidy up the back. I fold them in, I try to fold in the fabric. It's a bit difficult, a bit tricky. And then these are some backing discs that I made for myself. And you can just literally just hold and anchor the fabric in place with these, nice and easy. No one usually sees your back, so you don't actually have to do this. But I just think it looks tidier and a bit more pleasing than seeing hoop guts. And I also included these loops in case you wanted to make these into Christmas tree decorations or just hang them from the wall. And there you go. Well done. You've finished. Admire your work and enjoy.